Samsung just did the impossible. This Fold 7 is thinner than your phone, unfolds into a tablet, and has a 200 megapixel ultra camera on the rear. But there is one massive catch. The design changes of the Fold 7 versus the Fold 6 are quite significant, not only in just its thickness, but also in other key elements, such as the new hinge on here is aluminium and offers a much more smoother transition than it did on the Fold 6. But on top of that, you get a larger display, 8 inches, compared to the Fold 6's previous 7 point whatever it was. So there's that change as well. Also, what I would say is when it comes to thinness, it is significantly thinner folded or unfolded than the Fold 6, but even folded, it is still roughly thinner than an S25 Ultra, which is insane. We're obviously not factoring the rear camera on the back as well, which is a wobble fest when on a table. In terms of display, obviously there are two here. So you get a 6.5 inch main cover display, 120 Hz dynamic OLED. When you open it up, you then get the much welcome, huge, significant upgrade of an 8 inch dynamic OLED, and that is 2600 nits of peak brightness. But when you're watching back content on either display, you're gonna get a super crisp, excellent experience, not only in just visually in terms of just browsing the web, for example, or just going within your settings and customizing your phone to how you like it, but if you're watching back content on here of any nature, be it brighter or darker, you're gonna get a super rich experience. And of course, you benefit from the cover display being able to transition straight away across to the actual full 8 inch display. Yes, it hasn't been fully optimized. You do get large borders top and bottom because just the way it is, unfortunately, but our overall experience of the display is excellent. Super rich blacks, excellent contrast in terms of how it displays its content, really strong dynamic range as well. So in terms of consuming content on the Fold 7, you're gonna get a super immersive experience. Samsung foldables have traditionally always had one big Achilles heel, and that's its cameras. But that's not the case anymore. Last year's 50 megapixel camera has actually been replaced by a 200 megapixel camera, the same as what you get on the S25 Ultra, which is sick. In total, there are 5 total cameras. On the front cover display and the internal display, both 10 megapixels, and then you get a 200 megapixel wide, 10 megapixel telephoto, 12 megapixel ultra wide. And let's talk output. That 200 megapixel is the highlight feature here because the other lenses aren't all that different, minus the one inside the main 8 inch display. The quality of this is exactly the same as the S25 and the S25 Ultra, and Edge. They're not exactly the same. So you get excellent quality in terms of its output. Super rich and detailed, really great sharpness, and Samsung finally have dialed down their super contrasty photo into a more realistic, lifelike photo that's representative of what it actually looks like, which is a much welcome addition and a lovely thing to see rather than having it oversaturated. As a whole though, the camera system, when you move to things like telephoto, does a reasonable job. It doesn't zoom as far as the S25 Ultra would, for example, because the lens is a little bit different, but it still does a pretty good job. When it comes to the ultra wide, although those megapixels at 12 may not be great, they actually do, again, a very solid job and nothing dramatically different. That ultra wide will also double as a macro lens when you get close enough to a subject. And again, the output on all 3 of those main lenses on the rear are very good. Video wise, you can get 4K 60 or 8K 30 as well as your max output. So again, quality and the camera system on the whole of these Fold 7 is a welcome upgrade versus last year's Fold 6. Inside the Fold 7 is exactly what you'd expect. Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy, that same flagship chipset that lives inside the S25 Ultra again. So what you're gonna get here is exactly as you'd expect, top level performance when it comes to doing any sort of task on your phone. So if you're gaming on things like Call of Duty Mobile, for example, you're gonna get peak performance in terms of graphics, excellent quality, excellent color reproduction, as you mentioned, because that OLED in both forms, be it cover display or internal display, and you're gonna get really high FPS, 60 plus frames per second. But that is as you would expect. When it comes to other components, this phone actually comes with 7 years of 7 OS updates, 7 security updates. I always struggle with that bit, weirdly. Anyway, you get 7 of each. And then on top of that, you get One UI 8.0 and Android 16 out of box. And this is coming before any other manufacturer will get it, which is incredible feat and incredible coup as well. Now, in terms of One UI 8.0, the changes compared to 7.0 are almost non-existent. They all live within AI, and they live around sort of Gemini and Gemini Live that allows you to share your screen, for example, to be able to have a conversation around, say, what plant is this and how do I look after it? Those sort of things that allow it. And then also using video at the same time as Gemini Live to then have a conversation as well. So those additions are good. There's also just super cool refinements within One UI 8 to just make it a little bit faster. The transitions and the animations just a little bit smoother. And generally the performance, One UI 8 alongside the 8 Elite for Galaxy chipset is an excellent addition on the Fold 7. So the Fold 7 is an excellent phone, but that slimness and that thinness of 4.2 millimeters does have its costs. For example, let's start here. S Pen support is gone. Where the Fold 6 had full S Pen support on the internal screen, that digitizer has been removed on the Fold 7. So you can no longer use any S Pen of any sort, even the Fold edition, on this, which is a bit of a shame. Then you got the other issues that compound almost every Samsung phone in two ways. One, battery size, 4,400 milliamp hours. Two, charging, 25 watts, which is, I'm sorry, an absolute disgrace that those two are side by side, because if you compare it to something like the Honor V5, you get a 5,820 milliamp hour battery and silicon carbon with 66 watts of wired charging, and it is essentially almost non-cyclically exactly the same thinness. You get better battery, larger battery, and better charging as well. So it's a shame that those two components have let this down. The other final issue, I would say personally, twofold I would say, is when it comes to cameras, that 12 and 10 megapixel, 12 megapixel ultra wide, 10 megapixel telephoto are the same as they were on the Fold 6 from last year. So there's no real upgrade there beyond the 200 megapixel main sensor. And lastly, price. If you're not in the UK, thankfully for once, we've retained the 1799 price tag. Everywhere else there's a roughly €100 or dollar increase, which pushes this near enough to 2K when it comes to buying this phone, which is a lot of money considering the upgrades are significant, but there are some reductions in features as well. So to wrap up this video and this review of the Samsung Fold 7, our final thoughts are this, and it's primarily positive. This is an engineering marvel, primarily because it's done something that Samsung fans and fans of tech have been screaming out for, and that is Samsung using its incredible financial resources and R&D to develop something that is truly innovative. Where they were lagging behind everybody when it came to foldable design, they, I think right now, are probably top tier first place, primarily because you got an excellent 200 megapixel main lens, stunning front cover display, 6.5 inch OLED, and internal display as well, both incredible, and the upgrades there have been significant. Yes, there are compromises on things like battery and battery size, but I think with optimization, you'll probably find you get a pretty good battery life. This did not last us a day in terms of usage. It was less than a day, but it still did a very, very good job. And then lastly, performance in terms of its chipset is again top tier. Overall though, our impression of the Fold 7 is thank you and welcome back Samsung to the world of innovation and delivering a product that is really top tier. The Fold 7 is unbeatable at this point when it comes to foldables, but we have more foldable reviews coming real soon to compare to this Fold 7. So keep an eye on the channel for that review, and be sure to let us know in the comment section your thoughts on the Fold 7 and foldables in general. Love them, hate them, let us know in the comment section. And while you're there, hit like and don't forget to subscribe. Until the next one, we out.